Welcome. In front of me is a OnePlus Nord CE3 Lite, and today I'll go over unboxing along with a quick overview of this phone. Now without further ado, let's just pop it straight open and see what we're dealing with here. So, in the box we got the paperwork, I assume, and a case. That's nice. There we go. So there's our case. No one cares about paperwork, so let's just yeet that to the side. Here's our phone. Ooh, that's a nice looking color. I dig that color. Under here we get our charger. So this is a 67-watt charger. Nice. And our typically braided or colored cable, orange one. So type A to type C. And that's all we get in the box. Now let's turn on the phone and see what the device looks like, and also what it comes with. Now, as usual, this is basically alive as I go through it. I haven't seen this phone before, nor have I checked the specs of it. So let's start off with the cameras at the back. Now the main camera is 108 megapixel wide sensor f1.8. Then we got a 2 megapixel macro and 2 megapixel depth. I'm not even going to touch upon those because you can literally just like remove this part and the phone would be just the same thing. The 2 megapixel macro adds zero effing value to the phone. So that's a big L for OnePlus including these. Now, at the front, in terms of the display, we're looking at 6.7-inch display, 1080p by 2400. It's an LCD IPS display with 120 Hz refresh rate, 515 typical brightness, and 680 peak brightness. So in terms of brightness, this phone won't get all that bright, which is a little bit of a shame. I would expect a little bit brighter phone. Specifically when you go outside now during the summer, the phone might be a little bit harder to see. So something to keep in mind. Now, in terms of other screen specs, we have 87.1% screen to body ratio, so pretty slim bezels all around. As you can see, the only big one is at the bottom right here, which, if I grab my measuring tool, just to give you an exact number, we are looking at, if we're looking just at the glass itself and not counting the plastic bezel, we're looking at 4 millimeters. While the side right here, just the glass bezel, is at about 2 millimeters, so it's basically double thickness at the bottom. Now the top is a little bit thicker than the sides, just to keep that in mind. So now, that being said, the bezels right here are still pretty minimal. It is at 87%, so that is pretty good anyway. And in terms of pixel density, we're looking at 391 pixels per inch. So the screen right here is okay. The resolution and everything is great, but just the brightness itself, I would feel like could be a little bit brighter. Are you kidding me? I'm being blocked by a timer to skip the freaking setup? No. Skip. There we go. Anyway, continuing on. In terms of the internals right here, we are looking at a Snapdragon 695, which is a 5G processor. Now, if you're looking for a device strictly because of 5G, I would discourage you from doing so. 5G isn't necessarily as glamorous and great as all manufacturers lead you to believe. It adds to the cost. It gets them better earnings, but in terms of the usability of it, it's just kind of underwhelming. Now, don't get me wrong, the technology of 5G would be great. Would be if it was implemented correctly. And that also being said, 5G on phones is a little bit of a hit and miss, I would consider, or in my opinion, it is. Now, let me explain what I mean by that. So, the benefits of a 5G phone is that you have super fast internet with almost zero latency, and to you that's basically all that matters. Now on a phone, arguably you don't need insane latencies. It's not like you're playing first-person super competitive shooters right here for this to matter. 10 milliseconds won't really give you all that much. So that's kind of a useless one, especially if you're just browsing the freaking web. Why would you need a 1 millisecond latency on your internet? It just kind of baffles the mind. Also, in terms of speed, arguably, if you can load your videos, YouTube videos at 1440p without, well, ever needing to like just buffer them, again, I think we already reached a peak where you don't need faster internet. Now, where it does matter is for the providers, which put their 5G antennas. It allows them to let more people connect to the same tower and still not limit that tower. So typically, if you have like a normal 4G tower, if enough people connect to it, they will be all slowing themselves or each other. So your internet will go down in terms of the speed, and you might actually experience buffering of videos, which won't be the case in terms of the 5G, or shouldn't at least be. But that is primarily not something that you should be concerned. That's something that the provider should be concerned. And if they're running into that problem, the solution is put more towers. So yeah, it's kind of like you're paying for their development in a way. And that's kind of why I'm saying that the 5G just is a little bit of a mess. Now, also, most of the time that I review phones, there will be more of a budget device that comes with 5G. At that point, it's completely redundant, considering by the time 5G is more viable, that phone that you bought specifically for that 5G would usually be just discarded and swapped for a newer phone. In this case, I think this phone will run pretty well for several years, so it obviously should be pretty good for the 5G if it gets developed to the point that you actually get to utilize it in the fullest extent of this technology. Now, moving out of the 5G explanation and just rant about it, let's continue. So apart from the 5G inside here, we have also 8 gigabytes of RAM, 128 gigs of storage or 256 gigs of storage, 5000 milliamp hour battery, and obviously we have that 67 watt charger, which with advertisements, it charges your device to 80% in 30 minutes. So that's pretty good. And continuing on, in terms of the OS right here, we have the typical Oxygen OS. This is the 13.1 running on Android 13. And just to kind of showcase this, let's go into About Phone and we can see Oxygen OS 13.1 and where's the Android? There we go. Android version 13. Yoink. Whatever. So yeah, there we go. So at the moment you're basically getting the newest Android and I believe also most likely the newest Oxygen OS. And yeah, that's basically your home screen right here. It's pretty minimal, as you would expect from a OnePlus. It hasn't changed all that much throughout the time. So, one thing that I didn't mention is the front selfie camera, which is a 16 megapixel wide sensor f2.4, and that can record at 1080p 30 frames. Now the back can also record at 1080p 30 frames, so not much difference there. And a last thing to mention is the all-around peripherals or just ports and stuff like that. So at the bottom we have a headphone jack, which might be a surprise to a lot of you that it's still included. We have a Type-C charging port, microphone, speakers. Then on the side we have our power button that doubles as a fingerprint sensor. At the top we just got another microphone. And then on the side we have our volume rockers along with a SIM / I assume SD tray. Now let's check it out just so I am certain about it. And yep, we do have an SD tray here as well. So if you pick up the 128 gigs but you need more, you can just pop in an SD card in here and it will give you enough storage to basically accommodate for all your needs. So that's basically it. Now the last thing to mention here would be the price tag, and this device comes at about $250 US, which at that price I would consider this to be a really nice device for the price. Previously OnePlus has made some big L's, and yeah, I think they still tend to make L's just because they try to go away from their original kind of don't settle, our phones are flagship killers for like mid-range price, and then they just kind of decided to join the flagships with their prices, and then they decided to do some uncompetitive or not very customer-friendly things, like for instance making the batteries be locked to the device unless you ship the tablet specifically to their reputable repair service, which, what the F? It's just a freaking battery, you're not protecting anything here. So yeah, with that being said, I don't know what kind of mumbo jumbo they're doing here with batteries and just repairability, so I'm gonna review this just as strictly a phone that is fully functional and don't need no fixing. And in this kind of with this kind of logic, this phone seems to be a pretty decent phone. I like the feel of it, the size, the color, the specs of it are also pretty good, and obviously the price is well, in line with what you get for the phone, so no problems here. And to give kind of like a pros and cons right here, just a really brief one, not really listing all that much. There will be probably more pros rather than cons. So in terms of pros, the display refresh rate, it is pretty nice, 120 Hz refresh rate with 1080p display. The price tag is obviously enticing here. We do have a case along with a charger that comes included with the phone in a box. No extra charge for it, so again, thumbs up. And now the cons would be obviously starting off the inclusion of these garbage cameras. We do get to pay for them, but we don't really get to use them because they're absolutely useless. So that's big L here, and that's honestly about all I can think about right now. So yeah, so there we go. Now, if you found this video helpful, don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and thanks for watching.